So I want to talk a little about cranial distortions. So when we look at an infant skull, like we're looking at here, we have all these soft spots and these sutures. And in the first 2 years of life, well, actually the first year of life, this brain in here is going to grow 101%, and then another 15% in the second year. And by the second year of life, you're laying down the foundation, gray matter, white matter, synaptic development pathways. So you're laying down the foundation. So often when people see cranial distortions, they just think of it as aesthetics. Like, oh, it looks funny. One ear is flared out, one eye looks bigger. But that's aesthetics is the underlying issue that's a problem. For example, if you see somebody limping, you don't go, oh, that person's limping, that's fine. You know, that limp is a compensatory pattern or an injury. Well, the same thing happens with this cranium. Cranial distortions affect the underlying structures here. So, short version of anatomy, underlying this is a system called the dura. The dura wraps around the brain, goes all the way down the spinal cord, attaches to the tailbone, attaches to every nerve as it exits the foramina, the holes where the nerve roots come out. That is a tension mitigated system, which means it has a certain amount of tension. If you think of a string, like a guitar string, something that's attached to literally inside the skull all the way down to the tailbone. If it's too loose or too tight, it changes the tone of that string, the way the music comes out. Well, the same thing happens inside of a spine. If that tension is too loose or too tight, because it attaches also to the nerves and the bones, it can affect the way the nerves transmit impulse and the way they function. So a lot of these kids you see are very tight, very tense, very hyperactive because their system is too tight, too wound up, kind of what we call in a fight or flight state. So these cranial distortions, again, these cranial bones move and shift over those first 2 years a lot, kind of like tectonic plates. They don't even form sutures yet, which interlock as you get into an adult skull. So it's more or less a growth mechanism and protective mechanism. So when you see a distortion here, then what you're looking at is also the underlying tissue can be involved. So very often people want to, blow it off. Oh, it looks a little off here. One eye is bigger than the other. One ear is rotated. They have a head tilt. All that stuff, if you have it evaluated by a pediatric chiropractor or somebody understands the neurology behind it, you can see if that structure affects function. We always say structure and function are integrated. Structure affects function. Function also can affect structure. So it's very important when you start to look at this, have doubts, have questions, or unsure, to bring your child to somebody who can evaluate it on a neurological, functional, and structural way and not look through a small window, but a very broad window, because again, we're talking about health and human potential.